Friends, at this time we are going to begin the funeral services for Hyma Levin. If you have a cell phone or a pager, we would ask and invite you to please take a moment now to turn it off, or at least place it in the silent mode so as not to disrupt the funeral ceremony. Officiating today's services will be Rabbi Andrea London and Cantor Kyle Kotler.
We gather to say goodbye to Hyma Levin and to express our love and appreciation for all that she meant to us here at Beth Emet and to her family, to her new community in the Carrington, to all those lives that she touched, which were so, so many, only a fraction of which are sitting here in this sanctuary. And while this place might look a little different because we've done some remodeling since Hyma was the director of education here, her spirit and her voice and her teachings and all that she brought still echoes within this place. I can still imagine Hyma here in front of a group of kids with her enthusiasm and warmth and her ability to capture people's attention. And when one of the kids would say something that she found to be wonderful, she would light up and she would say, I'm grabbed by that. And then there was something else she was thinking about. She says, I'm grabbed by this, and let me share it with you. One of her students recalled a memory of her standing up here on the bima and doing the hand motions to Yotzer Or, the morning blessing, in which we thank God for creating light, as Jeff Klepper was singing it. There's so many wonderful, amazing memories. As the director of education, Hyma was very creative and innovated many new things here at Beth Emet, from having real report cards, engagement with parents at conferences, an open-door policy so that she and Nancy Fink could wander in and out of the classes and support the kids and give feedback to teachers. The third grade siyum, in which the kids who just learned their alphabet, the Hebrew alphabet, would come and share the letters they had learned and the words they had learned, a ceremony we still do today. And something else I know that Hyma was so proud of was the fifth grade Mishloach Manot project, in which kids would make homentashen and other goodies and distribute them to people in our community. These past few years, Hyma was the recipient of Mishloach Manot. And when someone called to tell her they were coming and explained to her what it was, she said, I know. I instituted it. But for her to still see that that tradition was going on was so powerful and positive, and that she could be on the receiving end of the kindness and love and Yiddishkeit, deep connection with Jewish tradition that she exuded and that she taught and touched us all here. And so with all of that gratitude, we gather to pay tribute to her life, to mourn her loss, and to continue her legacy. Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid, ki mimidi balamot, lechen samach libi v'egel kivadi, af b'sar yishkon levetach. I have set the eternal always before me. God is at my side. I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exult and my soul rejoice. My being is secure, for you will not abandon me to death, nor let your faithful ones see destruction. You show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is your gift. As we think about and remember Hyma, contemplate her life and our loss, we listen to these words of comfort, the 23rd Psalm.
Adonai roi lo echsar, binote sheyarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yenahaleini. Nafshi yeshovev, yeshovev, yancheni b'magle tzedek, yancheni b'magle tzedek, leman shemo. Gam ki elech beget salmavet lo irara ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha heima yenachamu. Ta'aroch lefanai, shulchan neged tzorerai, dishanta vashemen roshi, kosi revaya. Ach tov chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chaya veshavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim. Adonai roi lo echsar, Adonai roi lo echsar.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. As we begin to reflect on Hyma's life today, there are several members of her family and a friend who are going to share reminiscences. I'd first like to invite Hyma's son, Oren, to speak.
Hyma was a pretty awesome person. As she would say, I'm biased, but it's true. I look at everyone here and watching online and can see how many people she touched in her life. Until yesterday, I would have told you that her superpower was building communities around her. A longtime family friend, Lisa Gwynn, posted something online yesterday morning that changed my perception. She said, I lost one of my influencers. She and her family have made a huge footprint on my soul. Mom's footprints rippled far and wide. She was involved with the religious school at our temple when we lived in Massachusetts, and after we moved to Evanston, she started teaching here at Beth Emet. I know her impact here will continue to be felt for years to come. At the Carrington, she built communities of like-minded individuals around her, from regular friends who ate together to bridge games to the Jewish community that has grown and is part of her legacy. Mom was one of the first residents at the Carrington, and I could tell that it was a special place for her from the beginning. Shortly before she officially moved in, my wife and I visited her as she and some of her new friends celebrated the June birthdays with ice cream cake. Beth and I were wearing matching t-shirts that had the word bad and a picture of a donkey underneath. Mom and her friends looked quizzically at the shirts until someone said, "Ah!" and everyone started laughing. I could tell she was going to have a good time there. How far did those footprints ripple? In college, I spent a year in Israel. One day, a woman walked up to me in a bakery and asked, "Are you Hyma Levin's son?" I don't know how she saw Mom in me, but there I was, halfway around the world, identified as Hyma's son. I'd say the ripples traveled pretty far. Shortly after my wife and I met, I invited Beth to come with me to Chicago for Thanksgiving. She agreed, but on one condition. She needed an official invitation from my mother first. Not a problem. I knew this would be an easy ask. The problem, however, was I couldn't find her. I was in Palm Springs, California, visiting my grandparents, and I asked Graham to help. She couldn't find Mom either. Eventually, Beth agreed that an invitation from Graham was good enough to book tickets, but she still wanted an official invitation from my mother. Eventually, we learned that Mom had taken the 5th grade religious school class to a weekend retreat at Osrui in Wisconsin, and once she returned, Beth got her official invitation. Mom once told me that she was happy that she and I had an adult relationship that had evolved from a simple parent-child relationship. The fact that Mom had strong relationships with all 4 of her children, as she put it, her sons and their wives, was special, as we all understood that this is not true in all instances. Mom, your influence will continue to ripple throughout the world. I love you and will smile every time I come across one of those ripples.
And now I'd like to invite our son Josh to speak.
As Oren was telling you, as long as I can remember, we haven't been able to go anywhere without someone recognizing us. And for the longest time, I thought I should give up my given name and change it to, "You're Hyma Levin's son, aren't you?" Because that's how we were known, right? I mean, everywhere. It's ridiculous. Mom told me a few weeks before she died that she was okay with dying, and that she had done and seen everything she wanted. She said she was happy with her life and it was time to let go. I thought a lot about what she had said. And sure, Mom had traveled, but not for most of her life or to many exotic places. She wasn't poor, but she wasn't a multimillionaire. I thought about many tangible, touchable things: wealth, world traveling, owning a successful business, things like that. I've come to realize that her idea of a successful life is very different than most other people. She spent her life bringing potential out of people that didn't know it was there. She has bridged interfaith communities. She has made lasting friendships with people and has literally touched the lives in some way or another of thousands of people. She's changed the way people look at the world and how they look at Judaism, and they look at it in a new and thought-provoking way. Mom encouraged people to question their beliefs and ideas. She wanted people to debate and see other points of view, and found a way to make it all fun. Mom's life is complete because she has selflessly given herself to her family, friends, and community all her life. She has filled her soul with the smiles of the people whose lives she has touched. I am forever grateful to her for being patient with me and allowing me to pave my own path in life, but always being in the background when I strayed. I am happy that my children had the opportunity to be with her and bask in her glow of knowledge, curiosity, and whimsy. And I am grateful that she was able to see that her continuous hard work on keeping me on a steady path has paid off. She has become a part of all of us, and I will miss her very much. And I have a few words from my wife and family. Hyma was not my mother, but she was much more than my mother-in-law. She taught me how to be a Jewish mother and raise Jewish children who appreciated family time together. I personally learned how to incorporate joy into every holiday and make them special for my family. From frogs on the Passover table to having the children pick flowers from Grandma's garden for Sabbath dinners. Aubrey and Eli loved to make hamantashen with Hyma in the kitchen and latkes at Hanukkah. So many memories surrounding the kitchen and my children with Hyma at her side, mixing or kneading, laughing or watching. Many afternoons spent with Aubrey and Eli reading to Grandma while they had a tea party in the dining room. Aubrey's love of helping Grandma take care of all her orchids and garden has developed into a love of gardening that will carry on. This is her legacy that will carry on for generations to come.
As we heard, Hyma moved into the Carrington about 4 years ago, being one of the earlier residents there. Hyma invited me to have lunch with her about a year after she had moved in, and we could hardly have a conversation in the cafeteria because everybody kept coming and talking to us. Everybody had something to say to Hyma. And as I watched her grow and blossom there, teaching classes, leading worship services, being the president of the Residence Council. And when my family moved in to the Carrington, my uncle and my mother, Hyma extended such love and warmth to them. So we'd like to invite someone from the Carrington who had the chance to get to know her and call her friend, Judy Schregel, to speak.
Two quotes from favorite women authors lead me here today, along with my friend Hyma. Hyma and I sat together after her diagnosis and the beginning of her journey to leave her personhood and to journey on her long and winding road. She asked me to speak here. and it sent a shockwave through my heart. However, Hyma always spoke the truth to everyone. Barbara Kingsolver, another favorite author of mine, said, "Don't try and figure out what other people want to hear from you. Figure out what you have to say." And Mary Oliver, my favorite poet, over and over in The Butterfly, we see the idea of transcendence. In the forest, we see not the inert, but the aspiring. In the water that departs forever and forever returns, we experience eternity. I'm honored to share this time with Hyma's friends, her family, and everyone in remembering Hyma's life. Hyma was one of the first persons I met when I arrived at the Carrington almost 4 years ago this October. I immediately liked her sense of humor, her personality, her presence, and knew that we would become fast friends. Several months later, realizing we love travel and boats and trains, we were off planning a trip by ship through the Great Lakes to Niagara Falls, and then up to Montreal. The trip was wonderful, and we met 3 sisters and a mother that were all traveling, who became our gang on the ship. And every evening we captured a crowd in the lounge with our involvement in creating participation by the crowd. She talked me into the Sounds Good choir along with her sister Harriet, where we sang once a week together and ended the year with a glorious concert. Shortly after that choir experience, COVID entered our lives, and Hyma moved out to spend time with her sister Harriet and husband John at their home. She encouraged me to follow in her example by starting a class in storytelling, which is still going strong. And when Hyma returned to the Carrington, she started up again with her well-attended classes. She encouraged me to become a member of the resident council at the Carrington. She twisted my arm successfully. When she became aware of her condition, she stepped away and I took over her part as the president. This is not easy, it's a difficult task, and I think every day about following her lead at being the voice of the residents at the Carrington, which she did so well. I know I'll always miss my friend, and no one can replace Hyma. The example she set, her honesty, her love of her family, and her friends at the Carrington. I also know that many of us here have our own special memory of the brilliant, intelligent teacher that came into our lives, shared her time with all of us that she met. This is Hyma's life reflected in the words of Maya Angelou. I've always had the feeling that life loves the liver of it. You must live and life will be good to you and give you experiences. Courage is the most important of the virtues because without it, no other virtue can be practiced consistently. We can't be kind, true, merciful, generous, or honest. You may not control all that happens to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by it. Try to be a rainbow in someone's cloud. Do not complain. Make every effort to change things you do not like. If you cannot make the change the way you're thinking. What a legacy. What a life. I invite each of you to keep Hyma in your hearts. We were touched by her presence, and we were better because of that. And I found a Hebrew proverb that I think we must all remember. Say not in grief, Hyma is no more, but in thankfulness that she was.
I'd now like to invite Hyma's brother George to speak.
Shalom. Hello, Father. Hello, Mother. I'll be joining you, says my brother. Funerals aren't funny, but my family laughed an awful lot. My dad, Aubrey, thought he was quite funny, and he was in a very corny way. My mom, Ruth, had a sharp sense of humor and could nail some zingers. Harriet, Hyma, and I laughed a lot. Our relationship was based on humor, with the occasional serious talk mixed in. We just loved to laugh. At the end, Hyma was terribly ill and agitated. I got there one day when she was barely responsive. Harriet said that they were trying to get her to take an Ativan to get her more relaxed, and had failed. I walked in there and I said that she needed to take this pill, no reply. So then I said to her, if you don't take it, I will. And it was a joy to see her actually smile a tiny bit. She was hearing us while we were talking to her. She never did take the pill, but I reached her through our bond of humor. Some of the stories were legendary. On a family vacation, Dad asked what kind of ice cream we each wanted. After a pause for thought, Hyma said, if they have chocolate, I'll have vanilla. It didn't make sense then. It doesn't make any sense now, but I'm sure I reminded her of it no less than 500 times over the years. In what can only be described as a minor miracle, I believe part of Hyma's soul passed on to my daughter Kate the night that Hyma died. Kate was there for hours with Harriet and me as we said our goodbyes. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning when we finally left. I asked Kate if she wanted to stop at the New York Bagel on the way home. Kate didn't think that they would be open. I said, I think they're open 24 hours. It was then that Kate, uttered these words. She said, if they are open, I think I just want to go home. You need to know that Hyma was gullible to a certain extent, well, a lot. In March of 1983, The Thornbirds was a famous miniseries on ABC. Hyma was living in the Boston area and I was in Chicago. It was hard to always watch TV timely, so we had taped the show, which had run from Sunday through Wednesday. On the following Friday, Hyma called me, and while we were chatting, The Thornbirds was playing in the background. She was confused by that and said, isn't that series over? I promptly explained to her that due to the time change, we saw series later in the week than they did. She accepted that without question. More grist for my torture mill over the years. I doubt there is anyone on earth that would have an unkind word to say about Hyma. She was a Norman Rockwell painting come to life. She was a beautiful person with a huge personality, always taking people under her wing. Being Jewish was super important to her, and she shared it with many others, notably through her spectacular singing voice and her desire to teach. She was the director of education at this very temple for many years. She made countless trips to Israel and loved to travel in general. Lots of people loved traveling with her, as you heard. She helped many young men and women attain their entry into adulthood through their bar and bat mitzvahs. Ironically, our parents brought us up as conservative Jews, the middle level between Reform and Orthodox. Hyma found her niche as a Reformed Jew at a Reformed temple. Nobody loved paying it forward more than she. Hyma had her life so wonderfully laid out for her, and then had it cruelly taken away twice. My mom and dad, Hyma and Marvin, bought a house together. Soon thereafter, Hyma was divorced and my dad passed away from the same vicious disease that took Hyma. For the next 10 years, she was my mother's caregiver and companion. She had lots of assistance from Harriet and John, and ultimately Josh and Jesse and the kids moved in. Eli was a baby, and I thought that alone would kill my mother. But Hyma was nurturing and caring and got my mom through many trials. I've often said to Hyma that if it had been me in charge, my mom wouldn't have lasted 2 years. Hyma gave her 10 years more. Then Hyma said, "It is time for me now." So she sold the house and moved into the spectacular new retirement community called the Carrington. There she made massive amounts of new friends and carved out another chapter in her life that included seeing the world. Yet again, she was cheated. For 2 years, this disease attacked her, and nobody could figure out what was wrong until it was too late. She called a powwow with Harriet and John and Stacy and me, and she announced that she was choosing not to fight it. And if they could keep the pain at abeyance, she would accept her fate. Strangely, while she kept her word, she did fight it. She had a tiny bit of breakfast on June 23rd and never ate again. Even the oil on Hanukkah didn't last that long. It would be easy to speak about Hyma for days, but I'm not the only person speaking. I'll close with 3 more anecdotes, and then one off the cuff. For much of the intense 18 months of COVID, John and Harriet worried about Hyma and did everything possible to take care of her and keep her safe. While the Carrington did a great job, nobody anywhere was safe, especially the elderly. John and Harriet even moved her in with them for several months. It was effective, and none of the 3 of them were ever stricken. I had to go more than a year without being able to hug her, and only seeing her from across a distance. The first hug was sure one to remember. Thank you, Harriet and John, for giving Hyma so much more time and for her quality of life to be so good until the end. Hyma was named after her grandfather, Hyman. I'm positive that she is the only Hyma you have ever heard of. When I used Siri to call her, I had to give up trying to educate Siri. I would ask for Hyma, and she would say, "Do you mean Hyma?" There was no winning with Siri, but far worse was the government of the United States. At some point, either before or just at the beginning of the Vietnam War, Hyma received her draft notice. They didn't believe she was a girl. I'm certain that had she been sworn in and deployed, she would have made a huge impact. Fortunately, they came to their senses and gave her a pass. When I was 21, I was recently reunited with my family and wanted so badly to become an uncle. Hyma had tried for years to conceive without success. We were all sitting at Friday night Shabbat dinner when she casually referred to me as Uncle George. She probably had to do it 5 or 6 times before it registered, and I went bolting around the table screaming, "Uncle George, Uncle George!" She admitted it was true. She sure got me that time. The last thing I'm going to say is on the way up here, something happened that struck me as kind of a miracle. We passed a car with a license plate, and the license plate said A-I-Y-M-A. And the only way you could possibly pronounce that would be Hyma. So she did live in Boston for a while, so I'm counting it. I love you, Hyma. Rest in peace.
I'm ahead 5 grandchildren, Alex, Daniel, Peri, Aubrey, and Eli. And as everyone knows, they were the light of her life. And Alex and Daniel want to come up and speak a few words about their grandmother.
Grandma Hyma was a lot of things to a lot of people. One of the most important things she has taught me in the last few months is that no matter what happens, we have to be here for each other. Grandma started my love of theater. I came to visit for a week in the summer of 2013, and she had signed me up to do a performance of Oklahoma at the Lyric Opera Works. And I've been acting ever since. It's no secret that she loved the arts. In 2019, when I was in a production of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, she had told me later how on the way home she and Peri were singing one of the songs, Going Back to the House. Grandma and I shared an appreciation for theater. When I was here in April to tour the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, I had had a free day on Sunday. We had ended up looking for tickets to a show. One of those shows was one that I wanted to see, Six the Musical. We'd bought in tickets and went to the city the next day. At dinner that night, I'd asked her what she thought of the show. She said that she didn't like the style of the show, but it was nice to share the experience with her. Regardless of how she felt about it, it was nice having one last experience with her in a theater, especially since it was one where I wasn't on stage. She also had this gift of being able to touch and understand anyone. Last year, I had invited her to come into my drama club Zoom meeting while we watched a series of plays that the drama club had put on virtually. Afterwards, she had given each of us in that call a little talk, and that talk had sparked memories of how when we would visit her and we'd be getting ready to leave to come back home to New Jersey, she would take each of us into the parlor and we'd talk. Her private office talks were many. I may not remember the details of each one, but that one night with the drama club sparked memories of my private office time with her. After she'd finished talking to us, I texted her saying that this was a private office moment and that she had invited all of us into her private office. I joked with her that I blamed her for getting me into theater, and she said that she was okay with that. While thinking of what to say today, I thought back to a play I was in last year, The Laramie Project. I thought of the closing line of the play, and in the distance, I could see the sparkling lights of Laramie, Wyoming. Now, I want to give it a new phrasing and meaning. Grandma, wherever you are now, I hope you're seeing the sparkling lights of Chicago, Illinois. I hope you're having fun wherever you are, and I hope you're at peace. I love you, and I'll miss you every day.
Grandma was not a perfect woman. She didn't get everything and couldn't do everything on her first try. But she made an honest effort to learn and to improve no matter what. She asked for help, corrected herself, and always kept working towards being better. To be better for herself, to be better for others, and to make her world, whatever she could get at, a better place. This is something I try to do myself, and Grandma gets a lot of the credit. My parents get the rest, but Grandma raised one of them, so she gets his too. From my first memories with Grandma to my last goodbye, Grandma never stopped caring about others. As a kid, I watched Grandma as I followed her throughout her day, and she would explain to me what she was doing. As I grew, she began to explain why she did what she was doing. And as I grew some more, we started to talk back and forth. It's no longer, I'm showing you what I'm doing. Here's why I'm doing. Now it's time for you to think about, what are you doing? Grandma never talked down to you, and she always led by example, and it's part of why I feel that we all love and respect Grandma so much. Paraphrasing from my dad, losing her hurts so much, but it's proof of just how much she mattered. Because if it didn't hurt so much, it only meant that much. And it really hurts, because I'll never be able to tell her these things. And I don't know that I ever could have. For all of my life, this is just how things are. The sun rises in the east, Grandma rocks. The sun sets in the west, Grandma's still rocking. It's just not something that you can really consciously notice until it's gone, because that's just who she is. My grandma is a kind, caring, hardworking, and most of all, cool leader who has helped me and so many others grow to be better people, and I love her more than anyone, but she will know.
I'd now like to invite Hyma's sister Harriet to speak.
When the hospice nurse asked me about Hyma, I said, she's just like me, only nicer. For all that Hyma did in her life, for all the people she touched, that's probably what most people remember, how nice she was. Hyma thrived on people. You've heard when COVID started, she couldn't stand the idea of having to retreat into her apartment alone, so she moved in with us for the first 3.5 months of the pandemic. And what a time it was. We cooked together, we baked together, contributing banana bread cupcakes to the Beth Emet soup kitchen. We attended weekly coffee clutches online with our fellow singers from Sounds Good Choir. We even mastered the art of recording ourselves at home to become one of those tiny boxes on a virtual concert screen. You can still find those concerts on YouTube. Both altos with identical voices, always together. We attended online meetings of our Jewish book club together. We screened our monthly Rosh Chodesh meetings together, as well as additional social meetings with the group, all online, always together. We gardened together. We started seedlings inside in March and April, and then planted them outside later, always together. We both appreciated how well John got along with his newly resident sister-in-law. And Hyma talked about how living together gave her the opportunity to become much closer with John, which pleased her. And we laughed a lot. We talked a lot. Hyma told me that we were best friends as well as sisters, and I didn't see that until she pointed it out, but then it was obvious. I was and remain deeply honored that she considered me one of her best friends. But look at the rest of you sitting here. You come from the groups I already mentioned, Beth Emet, Sounds Good Choir, our Jewish book group, and our Rosh Chodesh group. But there are also people here from Hadassah, from the Carrington, from the Chicago Coalition for Interreligious Learning, from Congregation Kehilat Shalom, from Beth Emet, and more. From her 4 bridge groups at the Carrington, and the Hatzi Tatzi Singers, and the Kabbalat Shabbat group, which she co-led, fellow members of the Residence Committee of which you've heard she was president, attendees of the monthly classes she taught at the building, like Jewish Women Inventors, the Book of Ruth, Holidays, and my favorite, Hyma's Hop, Skip, and Jump Through Jewish History. You had to be ready to stop and say hello to other people if you walked down the streets of Evanston with her. So many people knew her and valued her. Family, wonderfully close. Oren and Josh, you were both wanted and loved. Yes, we talked about you. She was so proud of each of you. Beth and Jess, welcomed warmly and loved. Alex, Daniel, Peri, Aubrey, and Eli, you completed her, and she adored each of you. George and Stacy, John, what a time we've all had together. Hyma, George, and I made a decision after Mother died to be closer to each other than we ever had been before, with Stacy and John completing our little circle. Laughter, loving, fun, and now one fewer going out for Peking duck. Hyma had so many really close friends in so many parts of the city, the country, and the world that I won't name them all for fear of missing someone. However, I would like to tell you about one of her longest lasting friendships. Naomi isn't here today because she lives in Israel. She is, however, on the live stream. I spoke with her this morning. She attended the University of Illinois with Hyma, where they graduated in 1964, and that's 58 years ago if you need help with the math. Despite living over 6,000 miles apart, Hyma and Naomi have sustained a flourishing friendship in all this time, visiting each other here and in Israel, traveling together, and being welcomed by each other's families. Hyma's friendship with Naomi will give you an idea of the strength of her other special friendships also. Another close friend wrote to Hyma saying, "I have always admired your wisdom and depth of knowledge and how humble you are about it. You may not know this, but you were always a role model for me, someone I always looked up to. You did everything with such self-assurance and understanding." Yes. Oy, Hyma, what a time we had. Who knows what we would have done next? Oh, wait, I do know. You told me that we were going on a river cruise, just the two of us. I was looking forward to it, too. To close, I would like to share with you a blessing which was sent to Hyma by another of our dear friends. It's on her fridge. A blessing. May the sun bring you new energy by day. May the moon softly restore you by night. May the rain wash away your worries. May the breeze blow new strength into your being. May you walk gently through the world and know its beauty all the days of your life. I think she did that.
Hyma was the consummate teacher. To be the consummate teacher, you have to always be growing and learning and filled with curiosity, and that's how I would describe Hyma. She was also nurturing and encouraging of others to live up to their potential, as we have heard. When I first came to Beth Emet in 2000, Hyma was the director of education. And she thrust me into situations and had me teach and do things I didn't think I could do. But with Hyma's encouragement, I was often able to rise to the occasion with her support and with her love. She introduced me to the nuns. She said, "Andrea, you need to go teach at the Catholic school and meet the Catholic girls. And if Hyma told you to do something, you ended up doing it." And I was always grateful I did, because I learned and I grew so much from her example. She encouraged creativity, and she could spot talent and nurture it. Our first youth director here at the congregation was a student at Northwestern when Hyma found him and hired him to work here. And when I came, I said, "Hyma, he's so talented." And she said, "Yes, I could see that." And she nurtured his growth, and he's now a professor. Hyma was like that. She was always teaching new things, too, because if she was curious about something and she was curious about a lot of things, she would read a book and then she'd say, I'm going to learn how to teach it. And all of you at the Carrington and all of us here at Beth Emet, we benefited from that time and time again. That boundless energy and that open heart. She leaves a special legacy with us to continue to grow, to be curious, to love, to wrestle with new ideas, to see her blossom at the Carrington. When many people might be winding down in their lives, no, Hyma instead wound up. Continue to go strong and to share that love of learning and that love of people. As we say goodbye to her today, I think about the Torah portion this week that we read from the book of Numbers, and I would certainly be remiss not to teach Torah in Hyma's presence, so I will do that. There's a changing of the guard in this week's Torah portion of Chukat. Both Miriam and Aaron, Moses' siblings, die. Miriam dies, and there is no water for the people, and they cry out to Moses. And Moses strikes the rock, disobeying what God had told him to do, which was to talk to the rock. And Moses is then punished and told, you're not going to go into the land. So it's a trifecta. All three of these important siblings, we find out, are not going to lead us into the land of Israel. And at the end of the Torah portion, Aaron dies. And after Aaron dies, it says that the people mourn him for 30 days. And from this, we get the concept of shloshim, 30-day period of mourning after one's funeral to mourn their loss. The people are told they need to wait, not move on in their journey until they've taken that time, and then they can continue their journey to the land of Israel. As opposed to their rushing after the death of Miriam and Moses being filled with such grief and loss that he couldn't even hear God's voice, they're told, no, you need to pause. When we lose someone we love dearly, who has set an example for us and who's been so precious to us in our lives, we need to take the time to pause before we move on. And so Hyma's family, you enter that period of Shiva and then of Shloshim, to pause and to reflect, to take time for yourselves, to continue to share the stories, to say mourner's Kaddish for her, and then to move on with Hyma in your hearts, to continue to teach the way that she taught, through love of learning, through example, and through her love of human beings. That's the legacy that she leaves for us. So powerful. Stacy and to George, to John and Harriet, Alex, Daniel, Oren, Beth, Peri, Aubrey, Eli, Jess, and Josh. I'm so sorry for your loss and for the loss for all of us. May her memory continue to bless your lives as you share those stories and live by her example. In this way we say, Zichrono Livracha, her memory will be an abiding blessing. I know I am grateful to have had Hyma in my life, to work with, to laugh with, to grow with. There's a serious hole in our hearts here at Beth Emet, and in all the lives, the innumerable lives that she touched, and that we continue to feel, as Oren said, the ripples. They will go on forever. Amen. We continue together now with El Malei Rachamim, with the memorial prayer. I invite you, as you are able, to rise at this time.
אל מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים. המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה. עם קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע. מזהירים את נשמת חיה צביה, בת אברהם ורבקה, שהלכה לעולמה. בעל הרחמים, יסתיריה בסתר כנפיו לעולמים. ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה. ונאמר אמן.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Chaya Tzivia, Bat Avraham Verivka, to Hyma, daughter of Aubrey and Ruth, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Friends, this concludes our services here at the synagogue. The interment and burial services will continue at Memorial Park Cemetery in Skokie. For those of you traveling with us to the cemetery in the funeral procession, please do keep the following safety precautions in mind. Please make sure that your bright headlights and flashers are on at all times. Please be sure to obtain an orange funeral safety sticker for your windshield, and we will be providing several of the cars in the procession with a magnetic orange flag to be placed on top of your car. Please travel as close as safety permits to the car in front of you to avoid any gaps in our procession. And for your own safety and security, I would suggest not speaking or texting while driving to the cemetery in the funeral procession. The family will be together at the Jacobs residence at 8101 Keeler Avenue in Skokie, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday from 1 until 4 and 6 until 8 with a minyan at 7 p.m. And at the Carrington at Lincolnwood at 3501 Northeast Parkway in Lincolnwood on Wednesday from 2 until 4 p.m. The family has also requested any memorial contributions to either Hadassah North Shore or the Chicago Coalition for Interreligious Learning, or here to Beth Emet, the Free Synagogue. All of the information regarding memorial contributions and Shiva is available on the service folder that you should have received when you came in today, and if you did not receive one, we do have those for you as you leave. For those of you joining from the stream, that information is also available on our website at chicagojewishfunerals.com. The following individuals have been asked to serve as pallbearers: Alex Levin, Aubrey Levin, Jesse Levin, Peri Levin, Daniel Levin, Travis Dixon, Ken Redfern, and Charles Redfern. At this time, I would ask everyone to please rise and stand in place as we ask the pallbearers to please come forward to my left as we escort the family, the clergy, and the casket from the sanctuary.